Hello, everyone. My name is Gary, and I hasten to share with you my mystical and incredible story. The thing is that I suddenly woke up in the body of an unknown old woman, and I cannot go back to my usual body. For those around me, I am crazy and eccentric, but I still do not lose hope for returning to myself. All my life, I have lived somewhere in India. I had parents and two brothers, but for some reason, I don't remember their names, but I remember that my name was Gary and that I had a lot of friends with whom we had fun. I really liked to play ball with them and ran faster than anyone else. For this, I was even nicknamed Gary the Quick Foot, and in the evenings, my mother sang me lullabies, then she kissed me on the cheek and left. I was very lucky and my family was very wealthy, so my parents paid a lot of attention to my education and development. From birth, I was taught not only Hindi, but also English and Chinese. I also played the piano and was quite good at drawing. I was very happy living there, and I remember it like a dream, so some moments I don't remember at all. But I have no doubt that it really happened, and it was me, and not once in a past life, but quite recently. Only almost no one believes me, and the majority thinks that I have senile dementia. You have no idea how infuriating it is. I'm not an old woman. Can you hear me? I am not 80 years old. I'm a young girl. It all started, or ended, when I suddenly woke up at some bus stop. Apparently, it was the final stop, and everything around was very strange and unusual for me. I had definitely never been there before. I couldn't understand how I got there and where to go. Soon, a woman came up to me and asked in English if there was anything she could do to help me. And seeing my confusion, she asked for my children's contacts. Children? What? I thought she was crazy and hurried away, but it was very difficult to walk. My legs and back felt like I weighed 200 kilograms. A promoter was standing nearby with pamphlets, and I went straight to him. Mister, I think I'm lost. I urgently need to find my parents. Could you help me, please? I said hesitantly, but instead of answering, he rolled his eyes and backed away as if he saw a monster in me. It was very unpleasant, I'm telling you. After this freak out, I went straight to the store and wanted to ask for help there. And as soon as I went inside, I saw my reflection in one of the shop windows. An ancient old woman looked at me from there and exactly copied my movements. I even thought she was crazy and looked in other windows. Then I realized with horror that this old woman was me. I had a real tantrum. I shouted and asked for help from others, saying that I am young and what they see is not me. You probably understand how awful it sounded, and that's why soon a medical team came for me. It was quite expected. It turned out that I had documents with me, and it was thanks to that they were able to identify the old woman in whose body I found myself. It was an old woman named Anna, and she was born in 1935, and this is 70 years earlier than I was born. Can you imagine? I had to get some injections, after which the relatives of the old lady in which I lived took me home. It was her adult daughter of 50 years old and two granddaughters of 18 and 25 years old. My ear was terribly distorted when they called me mom and grandmother, although in fact I am younger than their granny. Get some rest, you need to gain strength and some kind of horror. But I knew that I needed to pull myself together and try to get used to the role of an old lady with amnesia. This was necessary in order not to end up in a psychiatric clinic. But at the same time, I continued to think about how to return to my body and where it was. I also didn't understand why I was inside the old woman. Why didn't I end up in the body of some rich beauty from Las Vegas, for example? It's not fair. Or maybe it's karma. One day, my heiress and I went on a picnic, and there they decided to play ball. At some point, I could not resist and ran to join them. Apparently, the memories of the past life and games with friends made themselves, but I did not take into account that I was no longer 15, but 85, and forgot that now my possibilities were limited. Running up to my relatives, I stood next to them and tried to catch the flying ball, but instead fell because my head was very dizzy. The fall turned out to be fatal because I heard a crunch and felt severe pain. My daughter and granddaughters immediately rushed to me with the words, "Granny, what's wrong with you?" Even though I was not their grandmother, but through tears, I still asked to call an ambulance. At the hospital, we were told that I had a fractured hip and the situation was very serious, so an operation was needed, to which my daughter and I immediately agreed, having signed all the necessary documents. In general, I wanted to undergo surgery as soon as possible in order to get rid of some of the monstrous pain I was experiencing, and I also thought once again how unlucky I was with my body and how old it was. Soon the operation began. They gave me an injection and I passed out. But the sensations returned to me. It seemed to me that I was swinging on the waves and the pitch of darkness was about to fall because I could not hold on to anything. It's similar to an imaginary fall from a height while falling asleep, only it lasted much longer. And then I opened my eyes in the hospital room. There was a nurse next to me. She smiled at me and touched my arm reassuringly, telling me that it was all over. But she didn't speak English. She spoke Hindi, which surprised me. An hour later, I was moved to another room, and there came my parents and brothers. I was both scared and happy, but when I looked at my now young hands, I had no more doubts. I'm me again, Gary, not Anna. Only my head hurt a lot. And soon I learned that this is not for nothing. The doctor and my family were not surprised that I do not remember much and say that I am an old woman. The fact is that a month ago I fell while riding a bicycle and hit my head hard, which caused a severe head injury, and I fell into a coma. The doctor spent the whole month fighting for my life. And, of course, nobody believed my stories about how I was in the body of an old woman, like the head injury caused me certain frustrations and everything like that. But, nevertheless, my 50-year-old daughter and granddaughter still stuck in my mind, and I didn't believe that they were just a figment of my imagination. And after I was discharged, when I was finally allowed to use gadgets, I immediately went to Facebook and easily found one of the granddaughters of the old woman whose body I had visited. Then I called my parents and said, "You see, this is my former granddaughter. What did I tell you?" But they just looked at each other strangely and advised me to rest. But this did not stop me, and I wrote to my granddaughter asking if she had a grandmother and if she had recently had a fracture. And after a little confusion, she replied, "Yes, I had a grandmother, Anna, and indeed she recently had a hip fracture after an unsuccessful fall. She was prescribed an operation, but unfortunately her heart could not stand it. And 15 days ago, she died right on the operating table. Just imagine that." Now, neither I nor my parents had any doubts that during the coma, I was really in the body of an old woman. At the time of her death, I woke up in my real body. But how is this possible? I think we will never know the answer to this question. But still, sometimes I miss the old lady's daughter and granddaughters. After all, I was a part of their family for a while. Maybe one day I will even dare to tell them everything. Do you believe in transmigration of souls? Write your answers in the comments, click on the thumbs up button, and subscribe to our channel so as not to miss the release of a new story tomorrow.